Welcome. Can you hear me, Zoomers? Good. Good. Apologies for the late start. Good to see you all. So we're laying on our back. It's the way we're starting this morning. Soles of the feet on the floor. Great. Taking a few deep breaths. Observe how the back releases itself. Observe how the back releases itself. And how that's correlated with the breath. Something's happening to the breath. The breath is releasing itself. And the mind is releasing itself. Because, I don't mean, I'm sure you know this already, the mind gets caught up, doesn't it? Stating the obvious, isn't it, really? But what's great about yoga, one of the things that's great about yoga is the recognition of yoga, of union. Body, brain, breath. So when we lay on our back and we observe the lower back, its release will necessarily be the release of the breath, will necessarily be the release of the brain. And in a sense, a release of our whole constructed universe. You know, we all have a particular universe. You've probably heard of the 6 blind men and the elephant and how they're all arguing about what an elephant is because they're all perceiving a different bit of the elephant. One's holding the tail and he's arguing and saying, well, an elephant's like a broom. And then another one's holding the body and it says an elephant's like a storehouse for oats or barley or rice. And another's shouting at them and saying, you're both ridiculous. An elephant's like a tree. On and on. Now, let's give our legs a hug. So lift up your feet when you're ready and wrap your arms around your legs. Knees can be together or apart. In my observations over the last however many decades, although it doesn't feel like decades because, of course, people change, but over the last so many decades, most people prefer to have the knees together for this, and that's a good option. There's also the option to have the knees apart, which is also a good option. 2 good options. And then there's rolling about. Now, bearing in mind that one of our goals, and we'll talk about why this is the realization of interdependence, not the agreement of the intellectual idea that things are interdependent, because, that's easy. And anyone, it's pretty obvious. There's lots of books on the matter that I'm sure some of you have read about how mycelium are interdependent, the fungal fruits are interdependent with each other through their mycelium. Trees are interdependent with each other through their roots. And then there's various other books about self and how the concept of self isn't quite right because everything's interdependent. So rolling around, I'll put you over here. Rolling around, you're still free. And finding sensations that are rich. And feeling that interdependence as a result. Interdependence between body, brain, and breath. Because when the body releases, so does the breath. And when the breath releases, so does the mind. And that's what's really important. So does the mind. Because you can release your legs when you're ready. Place your feet back down on the floor. Sorry, Nick, can I be a pain in the ass and put you there? Is that okay? I'm just thinking otherwise you might be zoomed. You might not want to be zoomed. Good, so once your feet are on the floor, take 2 or 3 deep breaths. Let's pop our hands behind our head, fingers interlaced. There you go. And that indicates that position with the fingers interlaced and the hands under the head, a position where we're not reaching out. Even if we have the tendency to reach out or the feeling to reach out, we're not doing it. So that's a mudra, a seal. Not only that, but we can observe. We can observe as we're laying here, there's an interdependence again, isn't there, between the body, the brain, the breath. The release, for example, of the chest muscles necessarily requires a release of whatever we're attached to, a view, an opinion, or a gripe or a groan. A lot of the time we're attached to gripes and groans, aren't we? Now we're going to flex the hips. Simply lift the feet. That's easy. And the lower back will go closer to the floor. And that gives us an opportunity to accept, accept the flow of things as they are. Now, as part of that, spontaneity often arises, and that can express itself any way. It can express itself, for example, as slight movements of the legs to the left or the right, or one towards, one away, or whatever. I can't list all the possibilities, but I can tell you what any of the feelings or any of the movements we might make should conduce towards. So if there's movement, it could be small, large, rapid, slow, but it should conduce towards a sense of letting go in the present, or letting go to the present, which will always manifest as a sense of joyful resignation. Joyful, because there's two types of resignation, aren't there? It's like, I can't be bothered. That's not joyful. And then there's joyful resignation, like when someone says, do you want a hand with that? And you know that they can help and you've been struggling. You joyfully resign to their help. Lift up your head and you'll feel the abdominals. Touch your toes slowly to the floor and you'll feel your lower back and the lower abdominals. Keep the heels up and breathe through the nose. Observe the back as you find it. Lift up the feet again and bring the head back down and take a deep breath that I can hear. So once the breath starts, then the yoga started. This sense of sharanagati, sense of surrender. We're going to extend one leg out to about 45 degrees relative to the floor, but if that's too low, you can bring it higher. If it's softer for your back to have it higher, that's fine. See how it feels for your back. Experiment if you like. Try it a little higher. If that's better for the back, then go for that. And then flex that leg back and extend the other. Again, more or less 45 degrees. So yoga isn't an exercise class. It's a meditation class where we see for ourselves interdependence. Flex that leg back again. Toes both down to the floor. Take a deep breath in, followed by the classic out. And then a few more deep breaths. So there's this sense of like allowing, letting nature return to her holism, leaving her alone. We use the term, we sort of tend to feminize nature in the Sanskrit tradition just because the terms that are used for nature tend to be feminine, like prakriti. Lift up the head, and you're still the heels are up as well. And we're penetrating into our sensation, like pressing something into a muddy puddle, like pressing a boot, or a footed boot, a booted foot into a muddy puddle. And as you press down, quite a satisfying feeling. Some of you might have even done this with a bare foot into a muddy puddle. But as you press down, a satisfying feeling that the little bubbles in the mud come up and out. Similarly, pressing into your muscles, what the muscles were previously driven by, which is assumptions, gripes and groans, things we hold on to come up, and the opportunity for out comes through the breath. Lower the head slowly. Lower the heels slowly. Take a big breath, biggest one so far. And let the breath come and go. So a few of those, very spontaneous. You can probably feel what I think is, for me anyway, a very enjoyable stretch of the ribs, in between the ribs, the little muscles, the intercostals. And this sense of, trust. It's not abstract, it's just natural. Like relax. Trust in yoga is always accompanied by a profound sense of relaxation. Now we're going to release the hands from behind the head whenever we're ready, including immediately. Good. And then we're going to raise up our favorite leg. Go ahead, raise your favorite leg up. Oh, it's hard to choose, isn't it? You just went for an arbitrary one. I don't blame you. because I don't have a favorite leg either. Now we're going to flex the foot back and forwards, dorsiplantar flexion. And that way we can feel stretch and compression. So as your heel pushes up, that's dorsiflexion. As your toes push up, that's plantar flexion. And as we go between the two, there's pressure in and there's release of that pressure out. Huh? And that's hydrating, increasing the hydration. You can imagine and feel it. And that will correlate, can correlate to a hydration, metaphorically speaking, of the mind. In other words, the mind also can start flowing, because when we're miserable or unhappy or grumpy or whatever, that's because we're stuck on something, like a moth stuck going around a flame. And of course, we know that they don't always have a good time. Okay, bring your leg down and take a deep breath. And just listen and responding is just normal, it's natural. And so there might be experimentation, there might be investigation, but we're going to raise the other leg up. And similarly, dorsiplantar flex the foot. So point the toe, push the heel, point the toe, push the heel, and anything else as well. You might think, oh, I must do only what Jim says to do. Jim's the yoga man. He's probably got yoga beads at home and smells of patchouli, all the rest of it. I do and I have. But, what the yoga comes from is your own sense of flow here and now. Nothing to do with being obedient to bearded, patchouli-smelling people. Okay, bring your leg back down. And feet down, take a breath or two. Now let's lift both feet up and plunge through the gap between the legs and hold the big toes. This is sometimes called Ananda Balasana in modern postural yoga, which is sometimes translated beautifully incorrectly as the laughing baby. Right? So the head can come back down and you're holding your big toes. And what do you want to do? I mean, not what do you want, but what does the body want to do? What does the breath want to do in terms of feeling peaceful? In terms of feeling, loving, in terms of feeling soothed. So do whatever that is. You might want to roll to one side a bit. You might want to open the angle at the back of one or both knees. You might want to roll the head. You might want to move consistently or pause occasionally. It's only about what here and now feels soothing, healing, absorbing, comforting even. We're comforted by nature because she is not ours, obviously. It's one of the things she does for us, that holism of nature reveals that she can't be mine, like, oh, my thoughts, my physical sensations, my moods. She can't be mine because everything co-creates everything. And, you've never had a thought that wasn't conditioned by things that happened to you. Yeah? And we don't get to tend to choose the things that happen to us. We do a bit, but the whole picture has a part to play. Now, when you're ready to release your Ananda Balasana, you can at any point. And we're going to bring the legs back down to the floor. Rest your hands on your upper chest and take 3 or 4 deep breaths. It's natural to breathe up into the hands. It's not something you need to do. It's natural, but it's gentle. It's breath-centered. Now we're going to roll towards the great big Buddha picture, which was painted by Arloka. I think that's his name. Rolling over towards the great big Buddha picture, which I think I've got his name right, Arloka. Laying on your side, facing that side of the room, supporting your head with your hand, and then extending your bottom ribs by pressing into the floor, lifting up. Good job. And then do that a few times. So you lift and extend. I presume, we all come every week, and I obviously come because of the money. It's for me, it's all about the cash. But, For you guys, actually for me too, it's not about the money. You know, there's an enormous amount of enjoyment from something like stretching the ribs. I don't know why I enjoy stuff like that so much, but I really do. Well, I do know why, actually. Because when you do something like stretching the ribs and really touching the floor and opening your armpit, there's a sense of getting back into the field of interdependence. Because everything is everything. So if you get into your physical sensations or your sensations of breath or anything that's natural, even observing your thoughts to some extent, then you're back, you can feel nature, prakriti. Prakriti, if you listen to the words prakriti, which is the Sanskrit, pretty much exactly correlates with procreation or making things from other things, things coming forth, manifesting forth. And that's happening all the time, isn't it? And when you feel that through feelings of the body touching the floor, then she kind of takes you into her. So it's often said you take 2 steps to the goddess and she takes 8 steps towards you. So before you know it, she's taking you back into her heart. It's called returning to the source. And once that happens, you no longer cling to particular sensations. So to go more into the field, you play. So you can roll. Let's try rolling on the body, forwards and backwards, and looking for sensations where, I hope you get that this is a metaphor, that where the goddess sort of, draws you into her heart so much that you are her, you're back with her. There's a lovely mantra in Sanskrit, the mantra Hum, which is associated with all sorts of different deities and Buddhist deities as well. And it's said to be the sound that a mother cow makes to call her babies back to her. That's a metaphor. So nature's babies are all the thoughts that pass through the head and all the sensations that pass through the body, etc. Okay, let's bring the top leg up when we're ready and have a little play with that. So when we look at goddesses in the goddess tradition, they've often been associated with, originally with Prakriti. So we've got on the shrine today, beautiful green Tara, and she's very much like that. And we've got a sort of quite a naturey shrine today, naturey, quite hippie shrine. So that I like that. Because Tara, like any of the goddesses, can represent this mother or goddess, which as you move your leg, as we move our legs, there's a sense of being drawn into something that's interdependent, which is very soothing as a result. It's very soothing. The thing that's, agitates us is a sense of us and them, separation. So it's soothing when that's dissolved. Now we're going to reach before our big toe with trying to take your hand to your foot more than your foot to your hand. So I'll just show you very briefly the wrong way to do it. That's me taking my foot to my hand. And then trying to take my hand to my foot will involve softening the groin, the top of the thigh. And that will involve massage, backwards, forwards movement, and the willingness to let go of what's driving any tension. What drives tension, of course, is doubt, uncertainty. And what drives uncertainty is a lack of trust. And we can trust by just playing. And we're going to try to reach the hand to the foot more than the foot to the hand. And then various degrees of play. So you can bend, extend. The leg can be straight or bent. It's very easy to think that you should be doing better. Whatever you do, you should be doing better. If you learn guitar, you should come off normal chords and go to bar chords, and then learn the blues scale, on and on. And if you learn yoga, you should get better at it. It's natural to think that, and I'm not going to say that's not true. But better doesn't mean more bendy. Very easy to think that is true. Yoga, people who are good at yoga are bendier. Complete nonsense. One of the best yogis in the world is the Dalai Lama, and as far as I know, he can't touch his toes. He might be able to, but I suspect not. I've watched his posture. So what makes a good yogi is someone who is using their bodily sensations to return to the source, which is not a concept, because that would just confuse you and me and all of us, but a feeling of love that you've had many times before when you've tasted something delicious and you've gone, at that moment you return to the source. And then out of habit, you've generated separation again. But okay, well done. Super duper. Bring that leg down. And let's have a moment, shall we? A little curled up moment. And breathe. So I don't know much about some religions. I don't know much about Christianity, a little bit. I used to quite like all those Jesus films when I was a kid, because he was all handsome, wasn't he? The guy that played Jesus, and cool looking, looked like a handsome hippie. But I know there is this the truth will set you free thing, which I like. So here the truth is this moment, which is interdependent. We're not saying it is, we're experiencing that it is, by noticing how when the body relaxes, so does the mind. Or when the mind wants to release, the breath is part of that, has to be part of that. So the truth will set you free, because that then stops us clinging. That's lovely. It's lovely not to cling. Curl up from the side. Oh, look at you, like you all went sleepy then. It's quite cute. Still face this side, swap round to the other side. People love that little curled up thing. I do. It's nice, isn't it? Lay on your side, take a breath or two. And then extend your bottom ribs multiple times. So you're still facing this side of the room. You just swapped which end your feet are at on the mat. So it should be on the other side, therefore. And let's get into it. So stretch the ribs and really touch the floor. So that's what sets us free from sort of cycling around our conditioning. Everyone's got conditioning, we're all conditioned by common conditionings of our society, common conditionings by worldviews of our time epoch that we live in now. Money is the common conditioning of a world epoch, exactly. So we've got shared conditionings, and then we've got personal conditionings. I won't go into them, but And so those conditionings, and then we've got chemical conditionings. We all have a particular chemical makeup and brain anatomy makeup and so on. And, those are sort of very particular. And so, but the particle is part of the field. So if you feel sensations, they'll return you to the interdependent instead of being stuck in the sort of independent, where you as a person have to figure out, am I doing yoga? Do I get yoga? Am I understanding what Jim's waffling on about? It's nothing, you don't have to worry about any of that. Just get into your body, roll around. Let's roll around. See if you can get a sensation as you roll forwards or backwards that's intense. Some people are very lucky and they have very, very tight iliotibial tracts. And as they roll, they're like, another expressive language like that, probably more sweary for some people. But if you find rich sensations that make you kind of like that's good, because those sensations eat you. Some of the most famous yoga books or yoga texts, like the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, for example, gives examples of practices you can do to help with this disappearing. And one thing it suggests, and I'm not suggesting this, don't blame me, but one thing it suggests is getting a piercing. It says that's quite popular in Brighton anyway. And I suppose you could extend that to a tattoo. And it's talking about this because just notice the intense sensation of getting a piercing, it says. Because for one moment they're like, there's nothing but that. But it could be something else. You might get a rich coffee later. Maybe you prefer that than getting a piercing. And then it's rich, isn't it, coffee? So there's a moment when you sip it and there's nothing else but coffee, because it outcompetes everything else. And those act as these doorways into the field. And so can a tight iliotibial tract. So hopefully it's really, really rich. Now we're going to bring the top leg up and play with it. Moving it between the horizontal and vertical planes. Jaw soft, eyes soft. And what we're looking for is absorption into the field. If you think about it, then it's confusing. Absorption into what? But if you remember, you know, a moment when, I don't know, the sun's touched your face and it's been warm enough in the morning that you've, you know, that's returning to the field. Or if you've ever put your nose in a rose and inhaled, that's returning to the field. Eventually, they're going to get to the upright with integration. And eventually, we're going to see if we can reach, and this is a moment of discipline, reach the hand to the foot more than the foot to the hand. And if you're anything like me, you're a bit impatient. Right? And hopefully, you're not as impatient as me. People into astrology might be interested to know I've got Mars in Gemini, which makes me quite impatient. So I have to really be disciplined. But some of you are already patient, so that's fine. Because I feel like I'll just get on with it, you know. Again, once you've held the big toe, there's the option to raise the leg or keep it bent, or go between bent and straight. When you are holding the big toe, by the way, the right way to hold it is indicated by extending your thumb up. And you'll have, if you're holding it like this, you should have thumbs up. And if your hand is going, thumbs down, you know you're holding it the wrong way. Sometimes in Vajrasati Yoga, we say breath is everything. Like just now. Breath is everything. So being still, if that opens the breath up, is the right thing to do. Moving, if that opens the breath up, is the right thing to do. Okay, bring the leg down, slow and easy. Well done. Let's have a little moment, shall we? Turn up those knees. Have a little moment. Sense of resting in the center. Of course, what's been noticed by yogis, particularly tantric yogis, but also before that too, is a sense of the visceral center. You know, so being centered, being non-dual means that you're in a place where you're not having to go with one reaction or another, but there's an infinite realm of possibilities open to you. So if all our actions come from the center, then all our actions have every option open to us that is possible to respond to what's in front of us. If you act from the center. And so our actions will be completely appropriate to what's going on, because every moment is original, so it needs its own very particular response. If you're not preloaded, in other words, if you are centered, then that will happen by itself. Okay. Oh, you're quite cute like that. Oh, let's curl up. I don't want to bring you out of it, but let's curl up. Oh, look at you. You're so cute and sleepy. Come on up. Well done. Very cute. I've gone sleepy too. It's happened to me. Hold your big toes, but don't sit too far back on your mat, because we are going to lean back a bit. And although it's not a big fall to fall off a mat that is 1 millimeter at best thick, it's still not a fall we want to have. So we're holding our big toes with our index finger, middle finger, and thumb. I'm going to just lean back. It's quite simple. And breathe through your nose. And that massages, oh, good thinking, Janet. That massages, Janet put her socks on the radiator for later. Investing in our future. Massaging the buttocks is a really good thing to do. And, you know, many of us do hold a lot of tension in our buttocks, but it's one of the areas, unlike the shoulders, that you can't just ask anyone, would you give them a little rub? You can't say that to people. You can say, can you give my shoulders that? You can't, you know. Can't do that with the buttocks.
Got a new chair.
Well, yeah, I mean, just don't think it always leads to where you want it to go necessarily, or the aim in mind. So the aim in mind here is to massage buttocks. So it's often best to do it yourself. And so this works very, very well because we do hold a lot of tension in the buttocks. Sometimes I say to meditators, when you're meditating, and you're thinking, just thinking and thinking and thinking, instead of trying to let go of the thoughts, let go of gripping in the bum, and you'll find all your thoughts go to. Now, you might want to experiment. Some people like to experiment with a sort of extension of one or both legs, both at the same time or individually. Just got to press the screen on the computer. So you can experiment. Now, you're looking for lightness in the lumbar. You're looking for lightness in the lumbar. Good. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Lightness in the lumbar. So legs could be straight, legs could be apart, legs could be together. Okay, we're going to come down and out from that posture into a cross-leg position. But this is probably a good thing to have two blocks for this, actually, and a blanket as well. Which I think most people have got in the room. Two blocks of blanket, but I'll bring some more out. At home, of course, blanket. Anyone need blocks? Yep. Anyone need blankets? Pleasure. Oh, Sonic Youth, great band. Sorry, did you need? No, you didn't. Okay. Sitting like that. I should just warn the Zoomers that there was an incident with my iPad being unplugged earlier that I didn't know about, and it could run out. But if it does run out, Zoomers at home, sign back in because I'll sign in on my phone. The phone camera is not great, but I'll do that. Anyway, hopefully it will last. It's 10%, it says. Palms up, Sukhasana. So the blanket goes like that under the shins because it acts as a brake. Because we're sitting on two blocks, the pelvis is quite lifted. That tilts the pelvis forwards, which we want. But we don't want it to tilt forwards and forwards and forwards because the lower back will hold tension. Palms up, breathing through the nose. So, yeah. So there's a correlation. We've been looking at correlations between gripping in the bum and attachment to whatever habituations we have. So we have habituational attitudes. We're habituated to certain things because we believe certain things. We have habits of the mind, just the way, predilections. This particular particles, have particular predilections based on conditions. So they're changing all the time. So we often call, instead of calling this a person, we call it a santana. Santana means a continuum. It's, it's connected to what it was before, but it's not the same, So when there's a release of the buttocks, there has to be a release of whatever the mind habituates to. And that's not to say there isn't any pushing away. There's no pushing away. It's just a release, it's like allowing. Now, as we relax, as there is relaxation, which is basically trust, there comes this, it's called kaivalyam, which means there's this sort of sense of freedom that comes. Bring your hands together to prayer position. Press the heels of the hands together and broaden the collarbones deepen the medial scapula, inner edge of the shoulder blades. Don't hold the breath, relax. Relax the inner thighs, relax the buttocks, relax the mind, relax the breath. That's giving back everything, the particle returning to the source, to the field. It's giving back everything that we misappropriated as mine, back to what is truly part of the field. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally down, raise the arms up. When you get about 3/4 of the way up, make sure the flow remains. So I got involved in, I was interested in all sorts of things when I was a teenager. I was interested in various different sort of Asian cultures, and I had little Buddhas in my room and stuff like that. But then I became overtly interested in Buddhism at the age of 20. And at that point, I came into connection with this phrase that Buddhists sometimes use, non-attachment. And it caused me an enormous amount of confusion for about the next 20 years after that. Like, oh, is that good? Is that bad? Non-attachment, it sounds horrible, But if I had only been told that I could describe the same experience with the word flow, oh, right, flow. Same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. Non-attachment's a sort of negative. You're not getting stuck. It's like walking through the forest without getting your clothing snagged. There's a smoothness to it. Smoothness to it. So that's non-attachment. You're sort of smoothly walking through the forest, really sort of graceful without getting caught up. Okay, big wide circle. Well done. Palms facing up. Breathing deep and easy. You can wiggle your fingers if you want to. Obviously, that moves the nerves that go right up to the brachial plexus. We're going to change the cross of the legs when we're ready. Good job. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. Blanket goes in again. Make sure there's a gap between the legs and the pelvis. So there are connections in everyone's life with this, in some way or another. If we talked, we could find, if you reflected, you could find the reflections of this in your own life. But when I was a kid, a smaller kid than this kid, less bearded kid than this kid, I used to very much like watching Tarzan on Saturdays. Very, very much. I'd be quite good at the call myself when I was a kid. I could do it now, but I don't think it's appropriate. It's quite loud. And when I used to go, there's a little lane near where I live, and I used to go, there's a little bit of woods, and I used to love running through it. And I used to watch my own feet as they'd because I was young and I was nimble, go run through it without getting snagged, like a smooth flow, because Tarzan used to do that. Used to run through. So that's a metaphor. That, maybe it resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. But, moving through the forest without getting caught up smoothly, And I used to run through, like ducking and diving. So that's non-attachment here and now. So as you sit tall and breathe, you're avoiding the snags, you're avoiding the branches, the sticks that stick out, which are habituations. And you're doing that smoothly. It's not aversion. You're not getting rid of, you're just trying to keep moving through the forest. So it has to have smoothness, flow, playfulness, joy, and actually sort of relaxation. I used to find it very, very relaxing, believe it or not, running through the woods. So moving left, moving right, moving forwards, moving backwards, looking for flow. Let's wiggle the fingers a little. We can probably feel the nerves moving all the way up through the arms, and they culminate in the spinal cord. Then interlace, stretch your arms diagonally. Make sure there's already flow in the neck, that it doesn't feel impinged or it flows, and so that we know what to stay open to as we raise the arms up. So then your movements become purely natural, responsive, easeful, happy. I like to remind people, Chogyam Trungpa is a very colorful character, and controversial as well. But wrote books like Spiritual Materialism, which is quite famous. But he said, and I like this thing that he said, is a meditation should be 30% effort and 70% relaxation. And this is meditation that we're doing now. So how are your ratios? 70% relaxation? Most of us, probably not quite 70%, but that's our target to head towards, 70% relaxation. Otherwise, the mind is reaching out, and what it needs to deal with is this, isn't it? This. Okay, big, wide circle. Hands on the legs. Touch your index finger and thumb tip if you want. So there's a sort of receptivity thing going on. Relax if you want. Saturday, Buddhist Centre. Quite chilled. And be open, just open. Wiggle if you wanna, fingers that is to say. And then when you feel ready, we're gonna move the blanket to one side. We're gonna move the blocks also to one side. We're gonna come into rather classic Adho Mukha Svanasana. That's down face dog. So in the room here, if you're on the outer side, face in. If you're on the middle side, we're facing this way. So that means coming to your hands and knees, first of all. Taking a breath or two. Oh, I'll tell you what, we'll do it in the way that's no longer in vogue. Let's bring back the old days. Let's lay right down on our tummies. We don't do this anymore. But if you'd come to my class 30 years ago, you would have done it like this with me. No, it's no longer in vogue. It's gone out of fashion. Bring your fingers underneath your shoulders. This is what we used to do. Fingers underneath the shoulders. Breathing through your nose, toes tucked under. Push up to hands and knees, and have a look at your hands. Make sure they're forwards of the shoulders. And then lift your derriere in the air. Derriere is French for bum, by the way. Lift your bum and push from front to back. And there's various ways. If you find some people slip on the mats, if you find you slip a bit, you can put a belt along for the heels of the hands to press into, or you can hold the sides of the mat. But there's also just padding your paws into a deeper weave with the mat. What makes a person slip on a yoga mat is sweat, even a little bit of sweat. And what makes a person not sweat is calmness. And many of us sweat because there's a sort of subtle nervousness that's coming out. And that's no bad thing. It's coming out. So as we become calmer by feeling into, as it were, the breast of the mother, into the heart of the mother, then the breath deepens, we become less slippy, sweat less. Now we might be moving the pelvis, we might be bending the knees. Many people find it useful to bend the knees, for example, extend them, just to hydrate and bring fluidity to the tissue. What we really want is to extend up through the armpits to the groins, through the inner armpit to the inner groin, through the outer armpit towards the outer hip, and through the under armpit towards the front groin. Such that we eventually get to a point when we almost feel lifted up by the top of the front thighs, and it's from there that the body can hang down. So the more we lift up, the more we can hang down. The arms stay open and we don't collapse in the shoulders. Good job. Okay, well done. Come forwards and onto hands and knees. It's called Bhavanasana.
table pose, and then take 2 or 3 or 4 deep breaths. So the breath should be deep. That's important. The breath should be deep. The breath should be expressive. Now, just be aware of what's behind you, because we are going to extend one leg out, so make sure you're not going to kick a thing or a person thing. And then extend the leg that's furthest away from me out behind you. So just make sure you don't kick any persons or things. And then raise the opposite arm and let that whole thing be sort of quite free, quite wobbly. I think of a compass needle, because they have a sort of bouncy freedom to a compass needle. So that's one way to think of it. So you can let your arm drift up and down. You can let your leg drift across the body, or down or up. But your breath should flow. Okay, coming back and taking another deep breath, or 2 or 3. So those breaths really flow. And then opposite to what you just did. Other leg, other arm. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Again, encourage some sort of looseness. Really let your arm drift right up or drift right down, or leg drift across. That sense of drifting. That sense of drifting, like little motes of dust, drifting in subtle air currents. Yogis should be so light. And to be light, we have to keep trusting, letting go, surrendering all the time. So believing in emptiness. That's our belief. We don't believe in anything other than openness, emptiness as yogis. Okay, come back to hands and knees and catch a breath. Wag your tail if you wanna. Now, because as I've got older, I've enjoyed more and more luxury in my life. I want more luxury. I want more cushioning, more, expensive pillows from John Lewis. That's what I don't want all the muck I used to have when I was young, sleeping on floors at parties. I don't want that. So because of that now, I expect you also want luxury. We're going to come up just for a high heel sit, which is not the luxury here. All right, so we think that's not luxury, Jim. It's just horrible. So high heel sitting is touch toes, so tuck your toes under and sit up high. Stretches the, yeah, you got it. Yeah, sorry. Some people don't like it. Sorry. It's quite tough. Well done. 3, 3, yeah, sorry. If you don't like it, it's okay, we'll finish. This too shall pass. Okay, I can't keep it any longer, Barbara. Love you too much. Come forwards. And then come out, and here's the luxury bit. Get a blanket. That's luxurious already. Just even the concept. Put it down on the mat. It's time for luxury. You deserve it. I don't think it's just an age thing. I think all of us got used to more luxury. We used to think it was luxurious to have a Viennetta on a Saturday night. Things have changed. That was just a treat, a luxurious treat. We used to think imperial leather soap. If you had that, you were doing very loud. It's soap, yeah. Lovers of luxury. No, we've gone too luxurious, Simon. Oh, we're going on top of it. No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. So that luxury will come. We're going to lay on top of the blanket and take a breath or two. So use your elbows on the floor and just stretch your tummy forward. Stretch your tummy forwards. So you drag back, but you pull forwards. You drag back with the elbows and forearms, but you pull forwards with the tummy. And if you move left, you can stretch the right. Oh, that feels good. And if you move right, you can stretch the left. Yeah. And then go between those two and really get some length and stretch. Sometimes you want to pause because it's like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. You might find extra good bits. Now, we're not just going to stretch the tummy, we're going to stretch the legs as well. So we're going to stretch both tummy and legs. And that's because in between the tummy and legs, we have muscles, and not least to say the psoas. So that runs, can you imagine a muscle that runs to the top of your inner thigh, or from the top of your inner thigh, to stretch the top of your inner thighs back. It runs up from there, over the pubic bone and underneath the abdominal muscles into the sides of your spine. So stretch the sides of your spine and stretch your legs back, and you'll be stretching the two ends of the same
muscle, and that will prepare you very, very well. Now we're going to extend our, I think it's going to work okay. We're going to extend our fingers out. You might end up making a new friend. Hi, morning. My name's whatever. And then breathe easy to yourself. Now notice if your heels turn in. Some of the gluteal muscle fibers function to open up the hips, and some function to externally rotate the legs. We want those to open up the hips, the hip extenders, to function, but not those that turn the legs out. So don't turn your heels in as you lift your legs up. Don't turn your heels in, but do lift your legs up. Legs up. There you go. Now you'll feel the buttocks and the hamstring muscles, because those are the muscles that are lifting your legs. You'll probably feel your back muscles a little bit too. Breathing easy. If you want to try it, try raising one hand. There's a little bit more tone in the back muscles. Make it a meditation by breathing into it. Well done. Bring that hand down, and when you're ready, in the context of calmness, raise the other. Meditate. Bring that one down. You know what's coming, right? Go ahead then. Both hands. Come on, you're all right. You're okay. Stretch, stretch. You're all right. Stretch. Breathe. Okay, bring one hand on top of the other directly underneath your head and rest your head down on top of them. Take a deep breath or two. Yeah, take a few really deep breaths. Shalabhasana, which is the pose we're looking at the moment, Shalabhasana, which means the locust pose. It's a very interesting pose indeed, and it often brings up quite a lot of resistance, but it always ends up giving a lot of energy. And we can talk about why that is in a bit, not until we've done it again. So come up onto your elbows and forearms. We're going to do a different version. So come up. Well done. Stretch your tummy forward. Let's do it together. Stretch, stretch, stretch in your own way. Stretch the middle, the sides, the back. Stretch the legs back as well. And then arms back beside you, thumbs on the floor. Just try not to turn the heels in again. Raise the legs, raise the arms. Breathe through the nose. It's very useful to find a sense of a central channel starting at the pelvic floor in a pose like this. Imagine a channel that starts at the pelvic floor and runs all the way along the front face of the spinal column. Good job. Okay, one hand on top of the other like you did before. Rest your head and take deep breaths. Just take 3 deep breaths, deliberately deep. Really let them flow. Really let those breaths flow. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Okay. Pop up onto your elbows again, please. Good job. Up you come. That's it. Stretch forwards again. It's not the same pose. It's a different pose, but we need the same preparation. So let's stretch the tummy. Let's do it together. Stretch the left, stretch the right, stretch the middle, stretch the legs back as well. See if you can sense that you're stretching a muscle that runs between the two. Not just stretching it, but releasing it into the stretch. Then when you're ready, we're going to see if we can take hold of a leg. One of yours, preferably. Might be easier to grab your neighbor's, but it won't be right to do that. Grab a leg. Now, it could be a shin, ankle, or a foot. Right? Shin if you can, ankle otherwise, foot otherwise. Now, I don't need to tell you this, but you've got another one. So, see if you can grab a leg. Oh, God, Jim. No, Jim, please. Breathe into it, yourself, brain self. Now that's enough to grab 2 legs, but you might be tempted, I suppose, to lift up as well, or not. Now, Saturday morning, I'm not tempted at all, Jim, by that. But you might be. And if you are, I don't want you to resist that temptation. Drive the back of the body in towards the front of the body and lift the front of the body up. Okay, calm down. Rest one hand on top of the other. Take some deep breaths. They can be really moany. You can have a good old moan-a-thon if you want. Let it out. Let it out. A few deep breaths. A good old-fashioned moment on. Yourself. People often say to me, with their eyes, they don't say it actually, but they're with their eyes, Jim, you're amazing at knowing what people want. You're amazing. I don't know how you do it. You always predict exactly what I wanted. And I'm going to do that now because we're going to do it again. So, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, my skill? You probably think, how did you know? How did you know how desperate I was to do it? So come on up, come on up, come on up. I know you're enthusiastic. Stretch the tummy, stretch the legs. Let's do it with more enthusiasm than before. Okay, stretch the tummy, stretch the legs. That's it. Yes, good enthusiasm. Stretch the tummy, stretch the legs. And then either both legs together or one at a time. Take hold. You Zoomers, I wish you were here. You could hear the incredible amount of moaning in the room with the roomers here. They're very moany today, but I love them very much. Very moany, which I love. That's true, they might be moany too. The Zoomers might be moany. They're all muted. Lift up your chest. Breathe easy. Good. I wouldn't mute you guys, even if I could. I wouldn't. Lift up the chest. Go on, let it out. You can. It's like, oh, it's like that. Of course it is. Like, oh God. Oh no. It's okay. Yeah, that's it. Come on down, come on down. One hand on top of the other. Rest your head. Take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 deep breaths. Well done, Zoomers. Well done, roomers. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Okay, roll over. I believe in you. Go on, roll over. Keep doing it. Keep doing it till you face me. I can't, Jim. I can't. No, okay. Bend the leg you're laying on. You did it. Bend the leg you're laying on. To about 90 degrees. 90 degrees between the thigh and the tummy and 90 degrees between the calf and the thigh. And then extend your other leg back so that you extend back where the psoas inserts the top of the inner thigh. So this twist is exactly the right thing to do after those back arches. So extend gently the psoas and know what happens to the body has to happen to the mind for it to be able to successfully happen to the body. In other words, for us to be able to stretch the psoas, lengthen the psoas, there has to be a release of what's holding the psoas. So we're inviting that release by stretching it. And when we release, then we become empty. Right? When we become empty, we are centered. We're non-dual, as it's sometimes called. And when we're non-dual, all the different possibilities of response are completely available to us. So all actions from the center are completely appropriate. All our job is therefore is to be centered. So like in the tum, push, lift, turn. Elbows, forearms, and wrists on the floor. This is called Shayana Marichasana. Shayana means resting. It's the resting sage position. Marichi is the name of a sage. Jaw soft. Some people find a little movement side to side helps to massage things in. So if that's helpful, feel free. Top leg on top of the bottom leg, just curl up from the side, nice and easy. OVS, it's an abbreviation of obviously, and we do the other side. So turn around, still face this side of the room, but your feet go to the other end of your mat. Still face this way, and then you bend the leg you're laying on. Very good. 90 degrees, plus 90 degrees, back of each, back between the thigh and the tummy and between the calf and the thigh, and then extending the psoas and feeling for yourself the sort of psychophysical nature of the body, mind, breath. So as we stretch the leg, feel the invitation. It's inviting us, whatever we've held on to, a gripe, a groan, an upset. We get upset, we're sensitive beings, of course. But stuff sticks to us. In Jainism, which is a sort of contemporary religious movement from the same part of India at the same time as Buddhism, they think of karma as sort of particles that sort of stick to you. And the more karmic particles you've got, the heavier you become until you can hardly get through the world, you know. I quite like that metaphor. So as you move, you're like dropping this gripe, you're dropping that groan. You're letting go of the thing, you know, whatever you were upset about, you know, whatever you were worried about, and you become lighter. When you're ready, suck in the thumb, push down with the hands, lift and turn. Elbows, forearms and wrists. Breathe through your nose if you can. Suck in the tummy, pull forwards, turn. Suck in the tummy, pull forwards out of the pubis. You're sort of pulling out of the pubis, out of the pelvic bowl, actually, and turning. On a sort of practical, you know, normal grown-up people who level of things, we can say, you know, we're hydrating the myofascia. That's grown up. Yes, we can do that. It's perfectly fine. And that's no different, that hydration of the myofascia, from talking about increased blood, ease of blood circulation, which is also part of less tension in muscles. And then, of course, that goes along with mental sensations. You know, so higher blood pressure, you know, tends to be associated with, you know, more stress, mental stress, tension, lack of patience, and so on. You know, chicken and the egg kind of situation. Good. Top leg on top of the bottom leg and just curl up from the side in your own time. Now we're going to sit in Siddhasana. The Hatha Pradipika says that Siddhasana is the best pose, and so much so it says, don't really need the other ones. I shouldn't have told you that though, because we should have just gone straight to it. The Siddhasana is a cross-leg position. Now you can sit either with a cork block. If you've got a cork block, use that. Otherwise, you can use the short end of these flat blocks. So I'll use the short end of the flat blocks in case any Zoomers don't have cork blocks. Same sort of thing. The heels aligned with each other and with the midline of the body. Zoomers, we've nearly made it to the end. It said 5% a minute ago. And we've got 5 minutes. So I don't know if it's 1% a minute or what. I don't know. Anyway, chest up. Now you can use a blanket under your shins as well. If the legs don't feel supported, then the body won't relax. And support's a part of yoga. In fact, Patanjala Yoga Sutra mentions supports, supported yoga in the commentaries on the Yoga Sutra. So shoulders down, breathing through the nose. Now we're going to do a practice. We've talked a lot about being centered, a visceral sense of centering. It's a practice called Uchara. And that's when you send, and this originally was, the practice is first listed in the 8th century in a tantra that uses the mantra Om to push it up through the central channel. That's what we'll do. And the idea is that it brings your attention to the very middle of your physical experience and centers you there, which correlates to a sense of being centered between decisions and views, right and wrong, good and bad, male and female, have and have, gain and loss, you know, which we tend to get stuck in. I have or I haven't, you know, I've succeeded or I've failed. We get stuck in that. But if our actions are from the center, then we'll be able to respond with whatever's required, because in the center, we're not already positioned, you know. So we do this by sending Om up through the central channel. You imagine it starting at the pelvic floor, and as you chant it out loud, you push it up through. As it becomes nasal, and M in English and Sanskrit and any other language represents a nasalization, just as N does, like in the English word bank. We don't say bangnaka, but it's a pure nasal, bank. So it's the same pure nasal here, like that. As you get to that part, you make it very nasally, makes you sound quite nerdy, actually. Nerdy people often speak nasally. You push it up through these last little blockages and out of the crown of the head. We're going to do that 3 times together. Okay, so it's Om, visualize it and feel it. And when it gets to this nasal area, make it more nasal and push it up at the crown of the head. 3 times. Take a deep breath in. Oh. Deep breath. Really visualize it for this last one. Really visualize the pelvic floor upwards. Deep breath. Shoulders down. Buttocks relaxed. When you're in the center, you can feel all around you various possibilities. You could go this way, that way. You could be pulled into this habit or that habit, this memory or that expectation. Acknowledge all the different drawers around the edge, like a clock dial or a compass dial, but you're in the middle. You might feel a tendency to want to go this way. Fine, feel the tendency, but don't go with it. You can feel the tendency, but stay in the center. Okay, we're going to lay ourselves slow and easy down for the final surrender. A pose that's known as corpse pose or sometimes as dead pose. It's equally macabre. Oh, good, Janet's investment has paid off. I should have told you all to do that at that point. Next week, put your socks on the radiator, everyone, when you get here. How do those hot socks feel, Janet? Oh, toasty. That's what we want. Lay on your back. Make sure you're warm and snug and happy and well. Palms facing up. Shoulders good distance away from the body. Jaw soft, brain soft. Laying on the back. As the texts tell us, find a place you can be on your own. It says, just lift your head, Simon. That's great. Find a place you can be on your own. Lay on your back with your mouth facing the sky, as if you were dead. Lay on your back with your mouth facing the sky, as if you were dead, with limbs completely loose. We're even told what the purpose of this practice is overtly in the texts, particularly the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra, which tells us that the purpose of this pose is laya, L-A-Y-A, which can mean various things, including camouflage, absorption, melting, It's the ultimate surrender. Surrendering everything to the field. And in that surrender, non-clinging is just a natural release. Everything flows. And as everything is returned to the source and flows as one, we feel nothing but appreciation for the holism that we can call the goddess or the mother. Because as she takes us into herself, as she takes what we've called ourselves back into herself, thoughts, feelings, emotions, tendencies, at the same time becomes revealed the true reference to I am, which has no labels. It has no limitations. It is not born, nor does it die. It is not young, nor is it old. It is not male, nor is it female. It is not here, nor is it there. But we know that it's truly I am. Feel into the body. By wiggling the toes and the fingers, feel into the body as if it were something new. Perhaps let those movements of the toes and the fingers turn into organic stretches, natural stretches. And then bend the legs and place the soles of the feet onto the floor and just scoot the buttocks under. Take a deep breath and release the lower back entirely into the breath. It's a really nice feeling. When you're ready, roll over onto your side to face away from the shrine side of the room and lay as comfortably as you can there. The knees drawn up, the tummy soft. Take your own time to roll again so that you can lay comfortably on your other side. Similarly, knees drawn up, that little cozy position we did earlier. And you might want to rub your eyes or run a hand through your hair, bringing ourselves round in that way, in those ways, until eventually we feel ready to bring ourselves up from the side, which is what we'll do. We'll face, when we're ready, towards the shrine where we can see Tara, beautiful Tara, with one leg up. I'm going to pick her up, actually. She doesn't mind. One leg up in meditation, one leg down into the world, representing action from the core center. So today we'll talk about transference of merit, as we often do, which is a lovely thing to do. But we'll end it with Tara's bija instead of with Om. Tara's bija is Tang, T-A-M, but the M is nasalized, Tang. So listen to the following words, and if you agree, then you can echo my tongue with tongue as well. May the merit gained in our acting in this way go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Tongue. Thank you so much for your time, Roomers. We did it. Zoomers, we made it to the end. We made it. Thank you so much for it. Yes. Great to see you all. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Loads and loads of love. Loads of mwah. Thank you. Oh, all that love coming right back at me. Bless you. See you really soon. Bye. 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 Bye.